Top 5 Kevin Warren accomplishments. Some of this will be good things, and some of this might be a little snarky. I'm just going to warn any Kevin Warren fans who are watching this, who I think is I'm just going to tell you, pretty brilliant businessman and handled things well, and I think the Bears have made a home run of a hire, and someone who can take them to levels they haven't been to. Number 5, taking the Big Ten out of the 1980s. This was a conference overall that, while they had success, had a commissioner in Jim Delaney who was one of the, if not the most powerful person outside of Mike Slive when they were both commissioners at the same time in college sports. And unlike Mike Slive, Jim Delaney was, we're not changing a daggone thing. We're going to dig in. We don't want a playoff. We don't want this. I mean, he fought every kind of change to the college football postseason that you could. And Kevin Warren is a guy who stepped in and started taking the Big Ten out of that, because if you look over the SEC, there's a guy, and there was Mike Slive, and then there was Greg Sankey, who aren't really saying no to much innovation. You know, they're out there trying to, disrupt things and change things all. So he applied the SEC strategy to the Big Ten, and it's worked really, really well for him in the conference.
They used to be the government.
Yeah.
They were the government, and they weren't going to change. And they eventually did, and now they're all raking in millions and millions of dollars. And now whether or not they still play a style of football, for the most part, that is still somewhat old school.
Overrated.
And so,
TCU proved that. Sorry. TCU proved that.
They
We
did.
say all those big, bad, physical linemen. They're not going to be able to keep up. This smash mouth football. A mouth got smashed in that semifinal game. It wasn't TCU's.
I thought the most surprising part was not that Michigan offense, although they scored some points, was that Michigan's defense is pretty damn athletic, and TCU made them look like they were slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some element of truth to that. Don't get me wrong, but this whole 4 yards in a cloud of dust, that's just not. There's more ways to skin a cat than just old school smash mouth football. And even if you want to go that route, doesn't mean just because you got Big Ten on your helmet that's going to be a battle that you always win.
Some of the new coaching hires will either keep that style or bring in the new, like Luke Fickell or someone like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I was supposed to have Phil Longo going to Wisconsin.
Phil Longo, yeah.
Yeah, they're upsetting the apple cart there. Number 4, helping expand the playoff. This was big on him. Now, we'll get into how he helped expand it in a second. But he did do that, and he was an integral part of it. But to give him credit where credit is due, this does not happen without Kevin Warren making this happen. So he did help expand the playoff.
You did? Yeah.
Yes and no.
Well, like I said, we'll get to how he did expand the playoff in a second.
He didn't originally.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Let's hold off on that one until the finale, we'll call it. Number 3, the Big Ten TV deal. He sent two other conferences and probably a third in the ACC scrambling to make sure that they got their next one. One of them can't do anything about it in the ACC, really. One of them hasn't been able to do anything about it in the Pac-12, and one of them has in the Big 12. But the Big Ten TV deal will resonate for a long time as now maybe the new industry standard.
Yeah, I mean, that part of it was masterfully done. Obviously, he doesn't get that done to the degree that it was without the LA schools. That certainly helped boost it. But, for all the options that they had, and let's face it, them and the SEC are the only two that had the full buffet of options. Everybody else had half the table's worth. But, he had obviously a lot of interest, a massive audience, lots of old money, new money, what have you, lots of tradition, a lot of things to sell, and a lot of things that were worthwhile to TV companies. And to swing a programming deal with a bunch of different major networks, and to have the Big Ten take over the SEC slot on CBS, and to bring in the type of money they're going to be bringing in. When not every week's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State, Michigan State, or whoever. That's a job that I think ranks right at the top of all of his accomplishments. Was certainly the expansion / TV deal that ensued, and he deserves a lot of credit for how he handled that, and he did a tremendous job.
Number 2, stealing USC and UCLA from the Pac-12, which, if I was doing this in sequence, then that would have had to come first. But this is what he accomplished and did it in the dead of night. Watched Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC and then sat there and said, all right, how do I do this in my league? And stole the second biggest media market in the country, or first, depending on the year, away from the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was his idea or if he got a little phone call and said, hey, what would you think about? But regardless, like, he had to pursue it or not pursue it, and he did and was part of the group that bye, Jack. Good job today, man. Appreciate you. He was a part of the group that, was able to make this happen. And so I think that was a giant move for them, obviously, and was so unexpected. That's the thing about it. It was just so surprising that, after Oklahoma and Texas, like, all right, well, surely we'll never have the type of secrecy and the surprise element. And it's like it took a year to get to exact same deal, basically, with USC and UCLA.
Yeah. Number one, convincing the ACC and Pac-12 to vote with him while conspiring to ruin their lives. And the ACC doesn't really take as much of the brunt of this as the Pac-12 obviously does, because their biggest media market didn't get ripped out. I mean, they didn't go into Miami and do anything like that. But I do think, and I've always thought this, if the ACC and Pac-12's TV deals were similar, would he have not tried to go into and get a North Carolina and an FSU to, like, rip in there so he's got every corner of the country covered in that conference for their TV deal? I do wonder, and I will always wonder. But the Pac-12 in particular, ACC and Pac-12 voted against a playoff expansion. Big Ten voted; they all voted against it, so it would knock it down. And he made it look like it was them and not him, and then took USC and UCLA
from one of his partners.
And then turns around and is like, you know what? We need to expand this playoff now that we've got these LA schools in here. We can't be messing around with just 4 teams anymore.
Yeah, it's going back to what we were talking about. He poo-pooed expansion because of the alliance, and then as soon as he got what he wanted, alliance over, expansion on. Well done. I mean, masterfully done. Made Pac-12 look like the biggest dopes in the world. And, I know the Big 12 didn't look too smart the year prior either, but at least the Big 12 movements, like, tipped you off, like, hey, you might want to pay attention to your schools. Yeah. And I guess the Pac just was like, we're in an alliance. We don't have to worry about that.
And gone.
And your alliance was not at all what it was made out to be. It was all just for Kevin Warren and the Big Ten's benefit. And, yeah, I mean, that was stunning on – a level, I don't know how much we'll see that anymore in our lives. The surprise level that came with the OU Texas and then the LA schools moves. But, yeah, I mean, that was masterfully done, like I said. That will definitely be his legacy, is just, bringing in the LA schools and that big TV deal more than probably anything else. But, yeah, very short tenure, really, in the grand scheme of things, but a very impactful tenure. That's for you could write a book on his 4 years as
absolutely
the head of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Jeremy Callahan on Kevin Warren's number one, pulling off the turd in my pocket marketing miracle that got people to think that just because his conference at Ohio State, the whole conference was good.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
Absolutely fair.
That's very fair.
Now at least Michigan's, holding up their weight too, and obviously Penn State. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely true for a segment of that time. Yeah.
Sure. Can you imagine, like, sitting in front of, like, all the TV execs while he's making this deal, be like, hey, and you guys are going to have Michigan, Ohio State, and hey, guess what? NBC, you're going to be able to do, like, a Notre Dame game, and then we're going to have USC versus Michigan, and then CBS, and next week you're going to have Purdue and Northwestern, and then just kind of don't worry about that. Don't pay attention to that. Look at this. This is going to be UCLA and Wisconsin. That's going to be exciting, right, guys? Hey,
yeah.
You get Rutgers.
Yeah. You guys get Rutgers.
Wayne Gerbach wants you to do a top 5 for the replacements of Kevin Warren. That would be at some point.
That I'll have to do some research on. I've seen a couple people do some articles on it, but don't know all that much yet, but I will.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he changed college football. He's one of those that we look back like 20 years from now and, like, wherever college football is, or college sports really, and you look at where it is, he's going to be one of those probably top 10-ish most influential, if not top 5, depending on how it goes the next couple decades, influential figures to look back on. So made some history for the benefit of the Big Ten, for the worst of others, and ultimately for college sports. We'll see.
Sir Blah Blah, longest top 5 headline ever. That was a lot of